Maybe you hate New Year's resolutions, or you really like the principle of setting goals for yourself for growth and progress, but every time you set a New Year's resolution in the past, you find it hard to stay on track. That's really not an uncommon experience for people. In today's video, I'm going to talk all about New Year's resolutions and how we need to tweak them or find alternatives to New Year's resolutions in order for us to be successful and happy about the whole process. I'm Meredith McKenzie of Parallel Wellness. On this channel, we explore topics that bring clients to our therapy practice every day. You'll find tips and strategies that you can make your own to enhance your everyday life and manage your mental wellness. So subscribe to the channel and hit the bell in the corner so you're notified when we post new videos. We publish every Wednesday. We have a bit of a dilemma. The new year is filled with hope and optimism about change and progress and growth and all those great things. At the same time, a lot of people who set New Year's resolutions find that they just don't work. And in the end, they feel more guilty and worse about themselves than they did in the beginning. How can something that's meant to empower us to feel like we're making progress in our lives end up being such a difficult and challenging thing for most people? The truth is, the whole process of setting New Year's resolutions is filled with guilt and shame about who we are and what we're doing with our lives. From the outset, New Year's resolutions are usually made around things that we're not happy about in our lives, things that we'd like to change, be better about ourselves. And in doing that, we end up looking for our flaws. So just by identifying what you want your New Year's resolution to be, it ends up being kind of an exploration of what are your vulnerabilities and what are the things that you'd really like to change and not be at next year. So through this process, we're identifying things about ourselves that we're not happy with, and that can be really uncomfortable. The next thing we do, especially around this time of year, is we start announcing to people what our New Year's resolutions are. It's part of the process of setting a New Year's resolution to announce it to other people and to share our goals for the new year with them. There's also the tendency with New Year's resolutions to kind of get stuck in these kind of stereotypical goals. It always seems to be that the new year is going to be the time that you're going to develop your new fitness regime, or you're going to lose a lot of weight. Things that are really vulnerable things for people to, one, have to reflect on and think about, and then also to share with other people. So it leaves us in this really uncomfortable space where we're not happy about where we're at currently. We want things to be different. We're going to share all that, pain and discomfort with other people. And then we're facing the daunting task of actually making change towards those things. Now, the common mistake that people make with New Year's resolutions is that they tend to be way too extreme and rigid. They tend to have expectations for, going from 0 to 100 that is just not manageable or sustainable for a lot of people. Along with all this as well, the new year has this kind of magical feel to it that, everything is fresh, we're going to be able to start new, and this is the perfect opportunity to be able to, take the bull by the horns and make this change. And so with that, we really jump all into our New Year's resolutions in the first week or two. We get really excited about it and we imagine how life could be different. And this really sets us up for this black and white thinking about where we currently are and where we want to be. We tend to set really high expectations for ourselves, but we're so hopeful with this attitude that we're going to change and we're going to invest in self-improvement that we get kind of blinded to how much pressure we're putting on ourselves. And the reality is, change is incredibly difficult. Being a therapist, I know this because of how many people come to work with me because they want support in making changes in their lives. So when your goals for change don't work out the way you'd like them to, it can be really disheartening to have to, one, realize that things are not going to work out the way you wanted them to be, to slide back to the reality of where things are, where you've already kind of announced to yourself that this is not an acceptable place to be. And on top of it, because you've announced to everybody else what your New Year's resolutions are, you then have to go and let them know those things, or they come and check in with you, like, how's it going? How are you doing with your New Year's resolution? What's the progress like? And you have to share that you have decided not to follow that resolution anymore. So really, I think that New Year's resolutions are kind of yucky. They make people feel not great about themselves, and then when they don't come to fruition, you end up feeling a lot of shame and guilt that you weren't strong enough, or you weren't determined enough or committed enough to be able to pursue this goal for yourself. And in the end, you just feel kind of yucky about yourself, and it's not a nice feeling at all. So I think that's one reason that a lot of people just decide, I'm not going to set New Year's resolutions. And if you're in that camp of people, I say that's fair. Why engage in this process where you can, see what happens time after time, and that you're not alone in that. That's what most people's experience of New Year's resolutions is. So why get yourself all mucked up in that when you end up feeling worse about yourself at the end of it than you did in the beginning? But you didn't come to this video for me to say, you know, let's throw away the New Year's resolutions, let's not even do that. You came here for the alternative. So let's talk about the alternative to our traditional New Year's resolutions. What can we do differently? I acknowledge that change is hard, but it's not impossible. And because of this, I think it's really important to really assess for yourself, and it's going to be an individual experience for everybody, but you know, look at what your intention is in setting that New Year's resolution. What is it that you're really wanting for yourself? What is going to promote your growth and your progress in a way that is affirming and positive and encouraging and helps you feel like a better person, and that you're really caring for yourself without having that underlying feeling of I'm not good enough and I need to change myself, that's going to end up pulling you down the wrong road. My first tip is acceptance. And that might sound a little unfitting to this when we're trying to make change, but anytime we're trying to change anything in our lives or about how we engage with the world, we need to first start with acceptance. Consider this. Have you ever been in a situation where you really would like something to be different than it is? And the more you wish that things were different, and the more you realize that things are not changing at a quick pace, the more frustrated you get, the more you dig your heels in, and it's a really uncomfortable, unpleasant place to be. The reality is that anytime we're making change, yes, we have some control in that situation, but in a lot of situations, we don't have full control over it. If it was as simple as snapping your fingers and making something change, we would all do that. But change is something gradual, and it's something that happens over time. And what I find is the more you want something to change and the less you're willing to accept the way it is, the harder it is when change is slow and gradual. Recognizing where you're at and having some compassion for it. So maybe that means doing some self-reflection on what's happened in the recent past that may have contributed. Now, I think there's some people out there that would use really harsh language and saying that this is excuse making, and that is not a type of language that I subscribe to at all. Instead, I say absolutely look at the contextual factors in your life, look at how you've been handling things emotionally, try to look at all the different things that could be considered vulnerabilities in your life that have made it challenging. It's really just a process of starting where you're at and recognizing what's been happening for you, and accepting that as this is just where I'm at and this is the reality of it, and not judging that or putting blame on yourself or name calling or any of that. Just saying this is where I'm at, this is what's contributed to where I'm at, and this is my starting point. Now, acceptance also plays into how we go into engaging in our New Year's resolutions. When we accept our starting point or where we're currently at, we're able to have more self-compassion for ourselves. Having acceptance for that gradual and slow progression that comes along with making any meaningful change, it's saying I'm okay with being with where I'm at right now, because every day that I make this progress, I'm doing something for myself and I'm investing in my own health with this. So it's really, that acceptance piece is really about the language that we use with ourselves and how we talk to ourselves about what's happening and how we feel about this starting point. From that place of acceptance, we're then able to, instead of fighting against ourselves and really engaging in some of that kind of self-blame and name calling that we might be doing otherwise, we're able to approach our New Year's resolution with a lot more clarity and energy. Now, acceptance and self-compassion go hand in hand, but I think it's worth talking about self-compassion all on its own. I've got a hint for you. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. And any change you try to make is not going to go perfectly. It is so easy that anytime we try to take on something new, to make any kind of change in our life, that when things don't go as we'd expected or as we'd hoped, we feel horrible about it. We tend to self-blame, and it can really act as a barrier that is difficult for us to move past when we're trying to make any kind of change. Recognizing that it's not going to be easy, whatever your New Year's resolution is the first step, because you then give yourself some self-compassion in saying, you know, I'm doing something very difficult here. This is difficult for me. It doesn't have to be difficult for somebody else, but in my personal experience, this is something that I experience as being challenging, and I'm working really hard at it. It goes back to that voice that you're using with yourself and the type of language you're choosing to use with yourself to be more encouraging and more compassionate with yourself. Using that voice of self-compassion, you're really going back to, why do I want to achieve this New Year's resolution? Why is this something that's important to me? And what is my intention intention in that. And for me, the New Year's resolutions that I believe are going to fit or be successful are ones that you have set to enhance your life in some way. It's not something that's just an end point that you can get to. Rather than trying to go from 0 to 100, where the end goal is really what you're focusing on in those yucky traditional New Year's resolutions, you're on a journey, you're on a path, you're going through a process here. And the enhancement to your life comes from that gradual process where you're gradually making these changes in this slow, progressive way, and you're able to see the rewards that come on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. It's gradual change that ends up helping you to gain confidence from it, and it's not just about the end point, it's about the journey. And when you look at it from a journey perspective rather than just, pushing for that end point and that product that you're going to get at the end, it really enables you to have more self-compassion for yourself. Because in the old traditional yucky way of setting New Year's resolutions, it's really easy that when you don't have something go the way you would expect it to go, that it feels like you've derailed, that somehow you've messed up, and it just discounts all of the positive progress that you've made. And that's really not a great way. It's not going to feel motivating for you to continue and get up again and keep trying. Whereas if you can have self-compassion for yourself, you can really reflect on what's happening and say, yeah, I had a rough day and this isn't going the way I want it to go. And by doing that, you're able to then reflect on all the different factors that may have contributed. And is stress getting in the way of me doing this? Am I not getting enough sleep? The way I'm taking care of myself? All those different things that you can really start exploring from a self-compassionate standpoint that will help you assess what's happening with your New Year's resolution goal progress. And then, say, this was just one day, I'm then going to move on and I'm going to continue to make changes in the next day. Now, going back to that comment I made about it being about the journey and not about the outcome or the end goal. Like I said before, traditionally when people are setting New Year's resolutions, they're setting things kind of in a black and white way. I am not good now, and I'm going to be so much better when I achieve this New Year's resolution. And that disparity or the difference between the two of these really is the place that sets us up for failure with our New Year's resolutions. Now, in order to make it about the journey, like I said, it's about recognizing the day-by-day incremental changes that you're making, but it's also about trying to find the gray zone between where you currently are and where you would like to be. And I understand there's probably something about that end goal that you're imagining will be whatever it is. It's going to enhance your life in some way. And this would be a really good time for you to kind of mark out, what are these things that I'm aspiring to? What is it, the feeling of it or the emotion of it, or what is it that I'm thinking is going to be so different when I reach that outcome? And, maybe it's that you think you'll feel happier, that you're going to feel healthier, that you're going to feel more connected with people, that you're going to feel more confident. Whatever it is, write it all out and get a really good sense of it. Because sure, maybe you will. Maybe you'll feel fabulous when you reach your outcome of whatever your New Year's resolution is, but I don't think that you have to wait until that outcome in order to feel some of those things. I also think that by listing those things out, you give yourself a really nice roadmap of what does this journey look like? What do I need to do along this journey in order to reach my goals and to feel like I'm truly enhancing my life? Successful, sustainable change happens slowly over time, and change is not linear. So don't expect it to go from where you're at currently and that you're just going to progress smoothly all the way to what your final goal is. Who wants to go from this to this and then have pain in between? Why can't we enjoy it as we're following this New Year's resolution? Because the whole point of it isn't something that you're supposed to be doing to, punish yourself or, really put yourself through the ringer over. You're doing a New Year's resolution because it's something you feel optimistic about, and that this change is supposed to bring something positive to your life, enhance your life in some way. So how can it enhance your life from day one? What can you find along this journey that's helping you feel better about your life in general just today, just in that moment even? And my last tip for this alternative way of setting New Year's resolutions for yourself is really about changing your perspective on what type of resolution you're setting for yourself. What I'm suggesting with this alternative way of setting New Year's resolutions is to really reflect on how can I show myself more love and be kinder to myself in this new year? Rather than having the focus on being a better version of myself or being better than I currently am, what I'm asking you to do is to consider how can I love myself better this year and how can I be kinder to myself? And maybe that sounds really fluffy and doesn't really seem to give you a lot of direction, but stay with me. What does it look like when you care for yourself or when you take time to invest in yourself? maybe you would end up engaging activities that are very similar to the way you would if you were setting a traditional New Year's resolution. However, the intention behind it is very different. Rather than torturing yourself with a type of activity that you feel like you should be doing in order to reach your New Year's resolution, maybe it means that you end up choosing to do an activity that you really enjoy and pulls you away from something that you might have traditionally been doing, but in the end you feel as though, you know, I've done something good for myself today. I've done something that's made me feel proud of myself. I enjoyed what I did, and that was quite fun. Traditionally with New Year's resolutions, like we feel like there has to be a right way to do something, and there is no right way. The only way that you're going to feel good about this and that you're going to feel like you want to continue and this is the type of change that you want to maintain, and it's not just going to be a January statement to yourself of this is my New Year's resolution, the only way you're going to make that change is if it's something that feels good and if it's something that feels like it's rewarding to you. So how do you reward yourself? You have to do something that is enjoyable and fun and makes you feel good, and rather than feeling badly about yourself, you actually feel better about yourself because you're doing something that's out of caring and love for yourself. Now, I think you can take these principles that I've talked about today and apply them to all the hopes and dreams you have for the new year. But let's recap, okay? First, we're going to start thinking about what would make my life feel happier, fuller, and more enriched. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to practice acceptance for where you're currently at. The next thing you're going to do, and this is going to be all throughout the whole process, is that you're going to practice self-compassion. I'm not perfect. I don't do things perfectly. And when things don't go as planned, it's probably for a good reason. All throughout this, you're going to be considering for yourself that this is a process. This is a journey, and I'm not seeking the outcome. I'm gaining something daily by engaging in this new type of behavior. And finally, you're going to change your perspective, because rather than wanting this elusive, grand outcome, you're going to start thinking about how can I show myself love? How can I be kinder to myself this year? And how do I, infuse that love and kindness through all of these actions that I'm taking to achieve my New Year's resolution? So this is a bit of a different video for this channel, but I felt like I had to check in with that conversation on New Year's resolutions that I know everybody's having. And I hope this video gives you something to think about as you start considering whether or not you're going to set some New Year's resolutions for yourself, or if you're not interested, what can you do to maybe just use some of these principles in any type of change that you choose to make throughout the year. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any experiences with New Year's resolutions and things that you have found successful for you, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also head over to our social media account at Parallel Wellness on Instagram. We like to be a part of informative and positive messages regarding mental health, and you'll find all of that on our Instagram page. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.